Good morning and welcome to our second Purposeful Stories webinar. Last week, so 2 weeks ago, the first one with Sebastian Bacadenza was fantastic and shed a lot of light around opportunities at the intersection of sport, purpose, and community. And we're very excited today to have somebody who's kind of walking the talk when it comes to community and sport. Todd Jacobson, Senior Vice President of Social Responsibility at the MBA. Todd, it's great to have you with us from New York.
Thanks for having me, Neill. Really appreciate it.
How are you guys doing in New York?
We're holding up day by day. I think the numbers have gotten better, which is good. And I think the weather's getting nicer, so people are going outside more and doing exercising. But it's not the New York most people remember. Everybody's in face masks. The numbers are not up. Very few restaurants are really open. But overall, it's good to see New York getting slowly back to things. But it's certainly going to take a while. And I think the governor and others have done a really good job making sure we're being safe and healthy during this time.
Right. Well, thank you for being with us today. We really appreciate it. And also on the this side of the camera is Andrew Wisniewski. Andrew is a senior project manager at 17 Sport. Hi, Andrew. And Andrew's going to be our Q&A bomber today, so he'll be popping in and out of the conversation with questions from those of you that are listening. If you do have a question, please use the Q&A bar at the bottom of your Zoom screen there. You'll see it there. Post the questions. Andrew will collate them and then bring them to Todd and I as we kind of progress through the session. So half an hour, we've got 25 minutes left, Todd. We kept them short on purpose so that we can kind of get right to the point.
Good.
Before we start talking about MBA Together and COVID and the stuff that you're doing right now, I wanted to provide listeners with some context to kind of why this is all relevant. So MBA Cares has long been held up as a kind of exemplar of best practice in the sport for good space from a league perspective. Can you just tell us a little bit about how MBA Cares came about and kind of where it's got to before COVID?
Sure.
What you were doing and what was working?
Well, I think like every innovation around CSR, it started with a challenge. And for us, when MBA Cares was born, it was when the people felt about our league was at an all-time low, how they felt about our players, our work in the community, all of those things. It was coming out of a lockout in early 2000. And those might remember that are fans. I think the Malice and the Palace when Ben Wallace and, Ron Artest, known as Meta World Peace, got in a little scuffle and it spilled into the stands. And I think that was an all-time low point for us as a league, and we needed to do more to change. And one of the outcomes of that was MBA Cares. I think, to put it really succinctly, it was kind of three ways we looked at it. The first is we had to make it, it was always a part of who we were, but we really needed to make it a really kind of core business pillar, part of our DNA. And so, David Stern, who was our commissioner at the time, said we need to really rewrite our mission statement as a league. And so it's not only be the best sports league, but to use the power of our brand and celebrity of our players to address important social issues. And so now as a leader in CSR, it wasn't just my responsibility, it was everybody in the company's responsibility. It was on every wall, it was on everybody's computer. And so being a facilitator and being with everybody allows success in the sense that everybody owns that and understands it needs to be a part of everything that we do as a business. We also then kind of looked at our kind of how we were structured. If you look at CSR in general, CSR departments live in a variety of different areas in business, depending on what the business is. They can live in the communications group. You see them in the marketing group. You see them in the finance group. You see them in the C-level suites. Even within sports, there's not a one-size-fits-all kind of proposition here. And so for us, we figured out that it was really about how people felt about our players, which was most important. And so what we did is realigned all the departments that really dealt with players and the spheres of influence around them, agents, the Players Association, legends, family members, everyone, into one department. So we realigned. At the time we were living in the communications group, we became a group called Social Responsibility and Player Program. So same time the mission was rewritten, we then have a new department of all these different groups that came together to realign and said, okay, everything off the court for players, including community youth basketball, player development, and player marketing, are all going to work collaboratively on these issues together. So that was the next piece. And then we launched MBA Cares. And MBA Cares, like a lot of the other programs, when we launched it at the time, there weren't a lot of other programs that had names. Now everybody does it, right? Everybody kind of has their own brand in which they launch. At the time when we were looking, we were looking at football and baseball and leagues around the world. And in most cases, it was a one-to-one alignment of football. At the time, it was United Way. Baseball was Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Except we were in an interesting position. We're a global league, and so we didn't want to, at the time, have one partner that really can encompass all that. So we decided to launch our own initiative, and based on that initiative, get a number of partners that we can work with together in the space, not just as traditional nonprofits, but as partners, just like we would look at a marketing partner and else, to counsel us through the different ways we can address issues as an organization. And that was important. Focus on education, health and wellness, and youth and family development. And everybody on the phone that has programming knows those are areas that most of us touch. They're wide on purpose so that you can allow for maximum local flexibility, allowed to not be prescriptive locally. The thing that we did that was a little bit different at the time, and now again everybody does, is we actually laid out very public metrics around the program. So when David announced the CARES program, the one piece he announced was we're gonna raise and contribute $100 million to charity, 1 million hours of hands-on service, and build 100 places where kids and families can live, learn, and play in 5 years. This was a point most people don't know. We actually debated this right up until the launch, because again, this was not something that people put out there. Metrics, the biggest and the hardest thing is everybody believes in what we do, but quantifiers are important, and not just for other people externally, but more importantly for your internal stakeholders to know what you're trying to achieve. And so particularly in our world where you have players and you have owners and you have teams and you have people around the world that are very engaged in our business, you want to make sure you have a succinct plan of what you're trying to accomplish and people understand that. And what we noticed, and again, this was a learning from it, I wish I could say, yeah, we knew it all along, but we didn't, was a little bit of a lightning in the bottle. And I think for us, particularly the places, and I think the best example here is creating these legacy projects where now, we said 100, we have about 1,500 in 38 different countries and territories around the world. And that's collective MBA family. So that's really players took this on and said, I want to be a part of this. What do I do? So metrics were important to define success and measure it is really important for your stakeholders to get involved, particularly when you're facilitating a wide program. So those three things was, kind of realign our DNA, our mission statement, who we were. Based on that, refine our strategy. So we realigned our department operationally. And then we launched MBA Cares as the vehicle. And then we defined success and measure with those metrics.
That's awesome. So David Stern was definitely a visionary. I mean, he was thinking about this stuff way before anybody else was in sport. I mean, which is really
David.
cool.
David was amazing. David was amazing. I will tell you one little anecdote. I know we're short on time. We can jump into the COVID stuff, but it shows the type of leadership that David brought. Was early on in the initiative, he was talking to the whole global partnerships group. And Neill, you're very familiar. You worked with us very closely over the years. And they're talking about what do we sell inventory wise, and this was early 2000s. Now we talk about this all online, but he's basically like, you need to sell them on our philosophy here and who we are and what we're trying to do collaboratively, right? So 20 years ago, David's really hitting the marketing folks, the media folks with, you need to go out this and this needs to be your message. Now it leads off every deck that you see. Before it was like, what do you mean? I just want to know what I'm buying as a sponsor in the league or as a vendor. And so David really kind of pushed that understanding and looking beyond just the logos on a back of a banner or how many ads you get, and understanding that philosophy, that alignment is going to be key in the future. And Adam has taken that to the next level. So it's been really nice to see that kind of collaboration, but certainly David's vision there as a leader was great to be a part of, because David really kind of paved the way. And when you have that top-down leadership, then you can run a good program.
So important. And I mean, I know it's not the topic of today, but he played a similar role with the environmental stuff. I mean, also a leader, and his thinking and understanding how all of these bits are connected, and that definitely ahead of his time. So I hope he's looking down and thinking, well, the foundation that I laid is proving its worth and giving something for people like Todd to kind of take to the next level. So changing gears now a little bit into the COVID situation. So it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was just the other day that Adam Silver stood up and made that really bold announcement that he was basically shutting down the NBA in the interests of people's well-being, which is pretty cool. So putting people ahead of profits, another sign of purposeful leadership. And I can't imagine what must have been going on in the NBA offices at that time. And I'd love to hear how this whole NBA Together thing came about and how quickly you had to put it together. I mean, what's the backstory to all of that?
Yeah, I mean, everything happened very quickly. I will say for us, we obviously have a very big presence in China. We have our MBA China office, and they have been living COVID-19 for a number of months. They're just getting back online now. And we had a number of colleagues that were working from home and doing that. So we, in early January, got a really good sense of what we were dealing with. We were very supportive through MBA China efforts of providing medical equipment to the new hospitals that popped up in Wuhan. That was really important to us. For us, it was about just doing whatever we could on the ground to be helpful. but it also started to prepare us for different scenario planning on what could happen if there was an outbreak and a pandemic. And obviously that was the worst case scenario, but that's what we're all dealing with now. You know, on that fateful night, we at the minute we pivoted and started the hiatus, literally the next day, it's like, what can we do? You know, and the great thing about our leadership, starting with Adam, is that's the mentality that he takes in it, is what can we do to make sure we're engaged? How do we use our global platform to get out the right messaging, which was most important at the time. There was a lot of misinformation out there, and we were challenged very early on to do that. Because of the alignment I talked about at the beginning, you know, in the years that we've been doing these programming, everybody jumped in, right? This is something that, you know, I feel incredibly lucky to be a part of an MBA family and in a team where everybody feels like, what can I do to help? And so having the content and marketing teams and everybody really aligned to see what can we do here was most important. When we thought through it, and when you're building a program really quickly, and I know Neill has some good materials and things that you guys can look at, because I would highly recommend them, it walks you through a good process. And the first thing you need to see is, who are we and what can we offer during this time? And for us, it was, what can we do to really just make sure that we use our platform to get out the right information and create connectivity? So we created MBA together very quickly. It was over just a few days, literally, that we created. We rolled it out within the first week. And we started getting out PSAs. And the first most important thing was, the first bucket was what we called Know Your Facts. And so we knew with our social media presence last year alone, you know, an average of 1 in every 7 people on the planet tuned into an NBA game through one of our digital, social, or broadcast channels. We have incredible reach. This is something we take a lot of pride in, something we really want to make sure we're finding new connectivity points and innovation in. It's something where Adam came from NBA Entertainment, and this is one of our strengths as we move forward. The great piece is, how do you use that strength to make a difference here? And what we did is we came up with a lot of messaging. We connected with the World Health Organization, we connected with the CDC, and we connected with local health officials in different markets. Because at the time when you're thinking about the pandemic, and still is, it's in different stages in different places. So the messaging is really important. And so we produce PSAs. We've produced, so people are aware, you know, over 30 we were close to about 30 PSAs. We really pumped them out a lot. In 8 different languages on purpose. It was shot by phones, mostly pushed out on social. And the idea here was to get out as much information to people to make sure that they were being, you know, at the time it was washing your hands and healthy habits. That turned into social distancing. That's turned into make sure you cover your face so that you're protecting yourself and, more importantly, others. All the information we need, making sure people don't follow misinformation, which was a big thing. And so, you know, to date, to give you an idea, we've had over 58 million views of our PSAs. So, and over 45 players that have participated. And so we've had a lot of really great interactions. We've done them in over 8 languages. But again, it was not the usual like camera crew production. It was, how quickly can we produce it on a phone, making sure it's a personal message to get out the word. And so the Know Your Facts piece became really the first piece to get out there. And now you see PSAs all over the place, and it's great. We should have as much messaging out there as possible. But at the start, when we were doing this, people were like, wow, you can do this really quickly. I'm like, we're trying to turn them around in hours, because we knew that getting out there very, very quickly during an emergency response was important. And so we worked very hard to do that. The second one is something we call acts of caring, which is something we're seeing from ever, which is, you know, big or small, we can highlight a lot of good organizations. We spend a lot of time shining the light on partners that are doing the work. Convening, we have a big megaphone. How you use that is important. And so it's not about us, it's about the great people that are on the front lines and the organizations that are providing those vital services and how people can learn about them. And so we feature a different organization every day globally. We also started to do something called acts of caring, where we encourage big acts, small and big, to do little and small to kind of get people engaged. You know, things as easy as just calling people, virtual volunteer opportunities, really focus on our employees, making sure our employees had things to do and engage here, something they really felt strongly about. And then our wider kind of stakeholder audience and fans, et cetera. So the acts of caring was our second bucket. The last two all combined, just in the effort of time to understand. The next piece was connectivity. And we knew we have these great platforms with our junior MBA program at home. We have these great opportunities with partners such as Headspace. And so we started to really highlight different ways in which families and youth and fans and general public can stay connected during this time. I think we learned a lot about Zoom and all these things through Zoom bombing and stuff that's going on out there. And we wanted to find ways that were fun and innovative to keep people connected. And the Junior MBA at Home series was a way we did that, through a lot of the youth basketball things you can do at home, exercises, mental wellness prep, all that stuff. Again, over 60 million views of that. So you're seeing there's a hunger for this content, really, really good stuff. You know, and that really expanded. And that led to something called MBA Together Live, which every day on Instagram at 3 o'clock, on Twitter at 4, we have a different player, coach, or member of the NBA family talking about different things. We've had players interview health officials. We've had players talk about different things going on. So we had Joe Ingles from Australia. He has a son who's autistic, talk about being a family of with somebody on the spectrum and how to manage that during this time and what resources to use. We brought in other partners. We're starting to get into the inequity that's happening in communities of color across the United States, particularly in the Black and Hispanic communities. What can we do to have conversations? We started a virtual roundtable series that'll air tonight. Karam Butler is hosting that. We have Mark Morial from the Urban League on there and others sharing their point of view to make sure that we're really kind of using our platform to shine the light on some of the issues that are going on organizations, how people can stay engaged and connected. And so those are the buckets that we used. We've also been able to integrate partners in very well. We've launched something with Walmart, which was very successful. It's a new partnership called Bring It Home, which people will start seeing videos around that. We also launched a face covering program, which, to give you an idea, has been so successful. And we were shocked. It's not a profit play for us. It's completely, everything's being donated back. And that was very important to us. We don't want it. That was not the purpose here. But the need and the hunger to get people to wear them, particularly kids and others, to make sure people are protecting others out there is going to be so important in the US and Europe particularly, but certainly globally, and how we can offer that up. And we've seen a lot of popularity around doing that. So we know we're having an impact. We know we're reaching kind of folks we need to. And more importantly, our goal is to continue to shine the light on the organizations out there. And frankly, it's been the entire sports community. The NFL did a terrific job around their draft. We've seen it around the world. And so it's been great to see the rest of the sports community rallying and being leaders here.
And Todd, in terms of what kind of response have you had from the media? I mean, I know you've been pushing out a lot of your own media. What kind of response have you had from your media partners?
Media partners have been great. I think, particularly Turner and ESPN, we've created things. I mean, for those that haven't tuned in and seen The Last Dance yet, we pushed that up. That's been incredibly popular. And it's been great to see that documentary, not only something that's been, a pride and joy of us for a number of years, come to life and see it there. You've seen other ones like ESPN Horse did. We've done some 2K competitions. Our 2K league is getting ready to launch. So what I've been really impressed with in doing that is really trying to make sure, I think, as we're a content group, is not be afraid to try things. And I think from an innovation standpoint, one of my favorite things, and it's hard to find silver lining here, I know we're all going through tough times, but the innovation that we've been able to try in our business on what can work, right? Even working from home is an innovation, and we're going to see a shift coming out of this that I don't think any of us quite realize yet of how work is going to look moving forward. And trying things out on broadcast, doing things on your camera phone, understanding that, if technology continues to advance, the amazing things you can do virtually and very quickly is impressive. And I think this time period really showed us that. I think we've seen it from others. It's really cool to see others kind of take that to the next level. And so particularly in the sports community, I think as we evolve and look at this, the innovations that I saw, particularly as from a digital and social standpoint, those are only going to grow, in my opinion, exponentially, because now it's you want to make sure you're staying connected all the time. And there's different ways and new ways we're learning to do things just out of, what happens a lot in this space. It comes out of pure need and the opportunity to connect and make sure we stay, social isolation doesn't mean social distancing. I mean, social distancing doesn't mean social isolation. And that's really important. How you stay connected is important there.
Right. So before we go to Andrew, I see Andrew's popped in, so he's obviously got a question for us. So this idea of innovation. So, I mean, what's been fascinating for me, and I think, this has been a kind of hobby horse of mine for a long time, is this kind of merging of sport as both an entertainment offering, but also a community offering. This idea that sport can be a community asset. Because I mean, the thing that's made me most sad is the way that kind of sport is not considered an essential service. And we were just switched off by everybody. We don't need you anymore. You're actually a threat to society right now because we want to keep people apart, not bring them together. And so I love what you've done with NBA Together, because you've demonstrated that you can still remain relevant as a sports property, even though you don't have any games happening. And that's what it's all about, because when we get switched off the next time, for whatever reason that might be, NBA will still be on. And I think there's a huge insight there for all of sport. Don't just think about your product as being entertainment. Think about it as being a community asset and how you can make the world a better place while you're delivering great entertainment.
Terrific point. And you're part of the social consciousness. I think we're seeing that. We're certainly hearing it here in the US about trying to get sports going again, and everywhere else. I think everybody wants to do it in a safe and timely manner. But, sports is important. The connectivity is important that sport brings, and how you use that platform. I think, Neill, you're 100% correct, is important. And we need to think of new ways and innovative ways to do that. And if this pushes us and pushes others into thinking ways we can do that, great.
Right, Andrew, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so a lot of good questions. So the first one's kind of more of a process question, but quite a few people have written in and asked about it. Specifically, Todd, how you and your team are working with two different groups. The first being sponsors. Obviously, the NBA has some incredible sponsors, and you've already mentioned some of that and how that work happens. And the second being the NBA players themselves. So obviously, we saw Steph Curry do the interview over Instagram Live with Dr. Fauci. I think a lot of people are curious, how does that relationship work with both groups in terms of, is it y'all proposing things? Is it a collaborative effort, and how that all works?
Yeah, it's certainly collaborative. I think, the good thing about our sponsorship group and everybody, as I discussed at the beginning, is they have bought into MBA Cares and the idea that this has to be a part of who we are in our business. And, to that reality, as this, as COVID-19 happened and everybody was adjusting to the new reality of working from home and what that meant and how that was impacting society and certainly things globally with the pandemic, partners started to think, what does that mean to their brand? The good news is you can have conversations like that, and we started them right away. Because we came out with MBA Together so early, we were able to share something with our partners that was a wide umbrella for them to think through how it would make sense to engage. And so we've seen really kind of innovative stuff. For example, with AT&T, who's done terrific work, we're doing something called MBA Math Breaks. It's with Learn Fresh and MBA Math Hoops, which is a nonprofit that does a board game and an app around making sure they're connecting folks, through the game, and you can learn in fun ways. You can be engaged in STEM and math, and AT&T loved it and wanted to amplify that. So they came on board. We had Kaiser Permanente and Headspace around mental wellness, and it's Mental Wealth Awareness Month in May. And so we're going to be doing a lot of activations there. We're promoting Dr. Murthy's activations, and he's been great as a former Surgeon General in the United States and has written a book around the topic around mental wellness and being socially isolated. And so there's a number of ways we've been able to tap in there. And so the great thing about starting a platform early and being really communicative now, and that's what I would always encourage people to be a part of it and think of creative ways to do that. Just because it's a community related and outreach platform does not mean every part of the business shouldn't be part of that. And that's a really important viewpoint we took from the start, that this is not a social responsibility platform. This is an MBA platform that really is heavily vested in social responsibility because of what's going on, but it's certainly part of our overall business and what ways we can create shared value with our partners. And we saw that, and we've had a number of great examples. And I mentioned the Walmart. State Farm has been incredible getting out there, both on their own as well as with us. They've done a lot around Last Dance. They created the ESPN horse as a partner there. They were terrific. 2K is another one that's been really good there. Fanatics, in terms of creating the face covering program. We were one of the first there to do that and really kind of make sure that we're using our platform to encourage and people to follow those important safety measures that the CDC and World Health Organization put out there. So on the sponsor stuff, we really were proactive, and partners want things that they feel are endemic to their brand, right? They want to be a part of what you're doing, but it's really based, where we try to start is on that shared value proposition of what are we all trying to do here? Why are we doing it? And then what does that activation look like? If you start with the what, it's much harder from a marketing standpoint to really reach a collaborative decision that makes sense and aligns and make sure it's relevant to what's going on in society now. And there has to be a strong balance here. So those things are really important. On the player side, what I would say is, those conversations, both with the Players Association, with the agents and others, we really started reaching out right away. It is very collaborative. Our players in and of themselves, a lot of them have production companies, are thinking of ideas, have large presence on social media. And so they came to us. The Dr. Fauci Steph piece you mentioned was from Steph directly. And so, Steph did that on his own. And so that just goes to show you, a lot of these guys are innovative and thinking about ways in which they can engage in, impactful and inspiring ways. And when we created the social media platforms, we created an avenue for them to come on. And so the idea was not to create a show to say, this is what we're going to do, but rather, what would you like to do? So for example, Jamal Murray is a piano player and a singer and wanted to do that, as is Victor Oladipo. He's held concerts on their Instagram Live on Fridays. We've seen that. We've seen players come in and want to talk about things that they're personally passionate about. We're doing that with the virtual roundtable series with communities of color. Now we're getting a lot of players that want to be a part of those conversations. Again, we have the one tonight at 7 p.m. Kyle Korver's another player that has joined that conversation, and he's been a big voice in this space. And so it was important for us to create an umbrella wide enough that allowed us to really tap into ways in which our players can really share their passions and who they are, and give them the flexibility and leeway, and more importantly, the time to figure out what makes the most sense. And we've had, well over 100 NBA and WNBA players participate in all our platforms since everything's happened. And so you've seen a really great collaboration. And I think that's, again, one of the great things about the NBA family is, the idea that we're all, we might all have different ways we want to get there, but we all wanted to help and have impact, was a great place to jump off at. Because at that point, then you can really learn and innovate from each other and see what makes the most sense.
So we're just coming up to the end of our half hour. It's amazing how time flies when you're having fun. And I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I'm going to ask you, based on the learnings of NBA Together, it seems to have been a huge success. I mean, it's not finished yet. I'm sure we'll see lots more success in the months ahead. Do you think right now is your thinking, if you even had a chance to think about what happens next, are you starting to think about, well, hey, maybe this situation has created an opportunity for us to be innovative, and that this can become part of our, just a natural extension of NBA Cares going forward?
Our thought is this is our response to what's going on now. I think we've encouraged it we've incorporated all our leagues. So it includes the WNBA, our G League, our new BAL league, which has been postponed and will launch hopefully in 2020. And then, our 2K league. And so our thought is that I'm sure elements will continue for sure. And we will take learnings and incorporate it into the things that we are already doing. And I think that has been, it's hard to find. You try to find positives in all these things, Neill, as we talked about before. And I think that's the one positive of what are things we can do cross leagues, what are ways we can be innovative on social and digital. That might be new ways to do things, particularly connecting global audiences. I think that's been my favorite part of everything, is that conversations don't have to be local. You can do this more. And I think I'm hopeful we'll do more of these types moving forward, regardless of the situation. I think it's too important to stay connected. And so I think there'll be elements we take. I'm not sure we'll continue that. And I think it's too early on all fronts to really determine what we're doing. I think Adam's been very vocal about that and very transparent as a leader. And it's been great to hear, because it's too early to scenario plan for us. I think we have to get to a point where we follow the guidelines and there's good testing in place before any decisions can be made.
Great. Well, that's a great place to end off. Thank you, Todd, for everything that you and your team at the NBA do. Always one of the first places I look to see kind of where the innovation's coming out of. I think you guys really are our standard setters. So thank you for that. Keep up the great work. And we look forward to checking in with you and again, maybe 6 months' time to find out how things have progressed.
Thanks so much for having me, Neill, Andrew. I appreciate the time. Thanks, everybody, for joining the call today.
Yep. Stay safe, stay well, stay positive. And we'll have our next edition of Purposefull Stories in 2 weeks' time. And so keep tuned for that. We'll share our details of that through the normal channels. And we'll also be following up after this call with some information that you'll find useful. So thank you, everybody.